everyone. Thanks for joining us for our webinar today. Like Alex just mentioned, we're going to take a look at 3 of the biggest features or enhancements for the year and try to walk through a few examples to show you how they work. Just to start, we're going to go ahead and start off with one of the more simple features, which is called Customers Per Circuit. This new feature is going to allow you to enter a number of customers on each circuit. And when you enter an outage, the system will auto-calculate the total number of customers that are out of power based on which substation or circuit you select. And then it's going to auto-populate that number into the field that shows the number of customers without power in your outage entry form. So I know that sounds kind of confusing, but the intention here is to help you determine the total number of customers out when you're entering the outage. This will not in any way prevent you from overriding the number that the system calculates automatically for you. It's really just a way to have the system help you determine what that number is. So you're more than welcome to manually enter any number of customers out at any point, and the system will not trump that. So now I'm going to share my screen with you, so this feature is easier to show you in the actual tracker. So Rochelle, if you can help me, I do share here. Right. Okay, and I'm going to go to, not let me click these, okay, there we go. I'm going to open up the tracker. I'm going to log in. And so this is my utilities detail page. So here I can hit Edit Substations, and I'll see a list of the substations and circuits here. And from this page I can create new substations, new circuits, edit the names, or do anything like that. For this feature, you can click on each circuit and enter a total number of customers that are on the circuit. So for this one, for North Circuit 2, I have 50 customers. If I go back to my North substation, for Circuit 1, I have 100 customers. So this is where you're going to enter that value. And now you're going to see it when you go to enter an outage. So you go to your outage entry form, and this right here, this field, the number of customers without power, that's what's going to be auto-filled with with the information that you just entered into your substation and circuit. So if I click a circuit, so say North Circuit 1, you'll see that the number of customers out is 100. And if I select North Circuit 2, you'll see that it turns into 50. So it's pulling the information that I put in under my Manage tab. It's pulling that information and displaying it in the number of customers without power field. And so a few things to note: if I do not select any circuit and I only select the substation, so I only select North Substation, then the system is going to add up all the customers on each circuit for that substation and put it into this field. So that's why there's 150 here. And if I don't select the substation and I only select the circuit, then it's going to autofill the appropriate substation name and then also fill out the number of customers for you. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my presentation. So some things to keep in mind, what I just went over is that when you select the substation and no circuit, the system is going to add the customers across all the circuits for that substation and auto-populate that into the field. If you only select the circuit, no substation, then the system will populate that field with the number of customers on the circuit. And so these are the 2 important parts. If you manually enter a value into that field at any point, then the auto-calculation aspect of the feature is going to be disabled. And if a user, or if you go back and view any of your existing outages, anything that's already been recorded in the system, the autofill feature is already disabled. And this is really just to prevent the system from overriding anything that you do or trumping anything that you do. So the next feature is multiple versus single cause events. So this one is just a little more complicated. Just to give a bit of background information, up until now, when you grouped outages together in the system to create an event, the system would count every single outage cause within that event in the cause-related reports. So, for example, if I had 3 squirrel-related outages and grouped them together into one event, the system would put a 3 next to the count for squirrel-related outages in the cause analysis. And that would happen regardless of the way that they are grouped together. So now to show how this feature really works, because this will help give you some flexibility in that aspect. So to show that, let's use another example. Let's say that at my utility we had a storm, and it caused a lightning-related outage where 100 people lost power. All right, let me click over. Can everybody see the screen? I think so. Okay. Yeah, so let's say there were 100 people who lost power from a lightning-related outage, and after 10 minutes, an additional equipment-related incident occurred, which took another 50 people out. So the first entry is going to show 100 people that are out due to a lightning-related outage, but then the second outage entry is going to be 50 people out for an additional 10 minutes due to the equipment damage that had occurred. So in this particular example, before the new feature was implemented, if I grouped together these two outages into one event, the tracker would have both outage causes, lightning and equipment damage, in the report, regardless of the fact that they're grouped together. So many people would say that this event as a whole should be solely counted as a result of lightning, and others might say that it's fine to have both lightning and equipment damage counted. But because that's really subjective and it heavily depends on how each user is going to actually enter the outages or break out the outages into separate entries, we want to provide the flexibility to you all to make that judgment yourself on how you want to, on whether it is just a single cause for the entire event or whether all of the causes in the event are important to report in your cause analysis. So that's why this feature now allows you to choose between the two options. And as you can see on the screen, you just have to toggle between single and multi-cause events at the top on this event detail page in order to make that change. All right, so we're going to go back to the example, and I'm going to show you how the causes pie chart report results look depending on whether you select single or multi-cause for the event. If you can recall, and as you can see on the screen, in the causes pie chart report, as you see, we have the option of ranking outage causes by either count or by duration. And that will make a difference in how the results are going to be seen. So keep that in mind, and instead of pasting in the whole pie chart into these slides so that you can see what's changing, I just went ahead and pasted that table that you see on the right-hand side so you can just actually see the numbers changing instead of having to see the whole pie chart. All right, so here are the results that I get when I run the report to rank by count. When multi-cause is selected, for this event in particular, our example event, when multi-cause is selected, a count of 1 shows up next to the cause equipment damage and 1 shows up for lightning. And when I select single cause, a 1 shows up only for lightning. So the equipment damage outage cause does not even show up in this table anymore because I selected single cause. And it's really important to note here that this occurs because when I select single cause for an event, the entire outage event is going to be related back to that first outage's cause. And the system determines which outage is the first outage based on the start date and time of the outage, of all the outages within the event. So in this particular example, the lightning-related outage occurred first, and so that's why when I select single cause, the only lightning is going to show up in the analysis because now that entire event is associated with lightning. And if I select multi-cause, then both show up. Okay? Gives you that flexibility. So now, when I run the report to rank by duration, you see something a little different. When I select multi-cause for the event, and I'm running the report by duration, the system calculates the total number of customer minutes of duration for each cause and displays that appropriately. So in this case, you'll see lightning. There was 1,000 minutes, customer minutes of duration, or of interruption. And for equipment damage, there was 500. And the calculations are also shown on the screen. Now, you can also see that when I select single cause, the system will show all 1,500 customer minutes of duration, which is adding up both the lightning and equipment damage customer minutes of duration, and it will associate all of that time to lightning only, which is the first outage's cause. So, just to repeat, as shown in the previous report too, that was run by count. When single cause is selected, the system will always calculate the total number of customer minutes of duration, or just attribute the event as a whole to that first outage's cause. Overall, this is the new multi-cause feature in the system, but please note that for all of the events that you already have entered in the system, the tracker we didn't change any of those things. So whatever you have in the system is still going to act the way that it was supposed to. All of the outages were and still are defaulted to being multi-cause events. So nothing changed for past events. This feature is just going to allow you to have the option to create single-cause events or multi-cause events as you continue to enter outages going forward. So no panicking. That's all. So this is the more complicated feature in my mind, at least. This feature allows users to enter step or partial restorations when recording outage events. So as you can see on the screen, once you group outages together into an event, you can now use your bulk actions menu, which is on the top left of the table there, and set one or more of the outages as a part of restoration. And the tricky thing about this feature is that it affects the way that you calculate customers interrupted for the event as a whole, which is the numerator to the SAFE calculation. And so I just want to repeat again, the customer interruptions is the numerator to the SAFE calculations, and the customer minutes of duration is going to be the numerator for the SAIDI calculations. So it's something important to note because this feature does not change anything about your customer minutes of interruption. It only affects your customer interruptions. So for those of you who plan on using this feature, if you look on the bottom of the screen when you're viewing your outage events in the tracker, we've added a feature that will show the customer interruptions and customer minutes of interruptions for the event as a whole. So on the event page, I guess you can't see it on this page, you'll see it in a second and a few slides down. But at the bottom of the table, there are two boxes that are going to show you your calculations for customer interruptions and customer minutes of interruption, so that as you're changing things on this event page, you can see how it's going to affect your calculations for SAIDI and SAFE based on how the numerators are going to change. So to better explain how the numbers are changing, I'm going to go through an example. Here it's a little different than the one we just did. And for those of you who are more visual, the chart on the top left of the screen might help explain the incident timing a bit better as I go through the scenario. So let's say that my utility experienced a lightning-related incident which caused 100 customers to be out of power. And after 5 minutes, we restored 50 customers because we were able to do some switching, but the other 50 are still out of power. And during this restoration process, when we're doing the switching, a utility employee, let's name him Billy Bob, he made a mistake, and an additional 50 people were out of power. Oops. So within 10 minutes of the original start time, all customers were restored for the outage event. So in order to enter this outage event into the tracker, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, I went ahead and entered 3 separate outages and grouped them into one event. So note here that in default, all of the outages are not marked as a part of restoration. You'll see that on the rightmost column. They all say no in that column. And when all the outages are set to no, as you see here, and here on this screen, you can see on the bottom, there are those 2 boxes showing the customer interruptions and customer minutes of interruption at the bottom. So yeah, when all of the part of restoration fields are set to no for every single outage in the event, the total number of customers interrupted for this event here is going to be 200. And you can see the calculation for that, where it's taking that first lightning incident, 100 customers out, and it's adding the second lightning incident, which is still the same customers out, but it's adding that 50 and adding the 50 customers that are out from the utility human error. So that's 200 customers total that are out of power in this situation. Some people in this example would argue that this is incorrect because those 50 customers that are without power in the second outage are still the same customers as the ones out from the first outage. They're not new customers. It's that you had the first outage and then restored part of those customers, so that's why you still have 50 out. So those are still out from the original incident. But to keep track of the partial restoration job that was done in this scenario, we have to separate it this way. Or I'm sure you can cut it up in different ways, but this is how we chose to separate the outages. But because of that, now the tracker is adding, all the customer interruptions and is deciding that, in this event, 200 customers were out. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it should be. So as those 50 customers continue to stay out of power, the duration of their outage is increasing, but the number of customers are still staying the same. So because of that, we've created this feature which allows you to go back and use the bulk actions menu. So if I go and use the bulk actions menu and set the is part of restoration field to yes for that second outage, since it was a partial restoration, then you can see at the bottom of the screen that the number of customers interrupted is changing to 150. So it's not including those 50 customers that are still out for the second 5 minutes of this event. And well, so in a nutshell, using this bulk actions option to change the is part of restoration field from no to yes, what it's actually doing is effectively preventing the customers interrupted for that outage in particular from actually contributing to the total number of customer interruptions for the event as a whole. And like I mentioned earlier, note here how the customers interrupted changed between the two situations. When I toggled from no to yes for the is part of restoration for that second outage, you can see that the customer interruptions changed from 200 to 150, but the customer minutes of duration stayed the same. It's still 1,000. And graphically, the customer minutes of interruption is actually going to be the area of all the purple boxes, which in this example is 1,000 minutes. So, you know, if you ever have trouble when you're trying to figure out how to enter the outages and which ones count and which ones don't, for some people, visually, it just helps to make a chart like this and kind of look at it this way. One thing to note here also is that the partial restoration and multi-single cause features are completely separate features, but we're going to go over one circumstance where their effects do actually cross paths. For example, if we use our partial restoration event example that we were just looking at, you see that when you run the causes report to rank by count, you'll see at the bottom left that there were 2 lightning-related outages and 1 utility human error. And this is correct because, as you can see from the top right, that the multi-cause button was selected for the event, which means the system will automatically count all of the outage causes. To make it easier for the user to understand what outage causes are actually being included in their cause analysis or reports here, we actually added these check marks in the column where you see the cause column. It's right next to each cause. And this indicates that that specific cause is being counted in the report. So now if we change one of the outages to being part of restoration, the results will change. So this is kind of where the two features cross. So essentially the system will ignore the outage cause, lightning in this particular example, that's associated with the outage marked as a part of restoration. And this, even though it seems a little weird at first, it occurs because the is part of restoration feature affects all of the reports that have to do with customer interruptions. So in a broader sense, when you mark an outage as a part of restoration, what you're really saying is that the customers out in this restoration process are the same customers that were already out. You may or may not have restored some of the customers, but the ones that are still out for the same reason or same cause. So that's why the cause is not counted in the analysis. If it did, we would end up double counting the same original cause, which is what we were aiming to avoid when we created these new features. In this particular situation, lightning was the original cause, and 100 customers were out because of it. The 50 customers that were not restored after 5 minutes, so they're still out of power, well, they're still out of power because of the lightning-related incident, so we wouldn't want to count lightning twice in the analysis. So that's why even though multi-cause event is selected, if yes is in the field for is part of restoration for one of those outages, it's not going to include that cause in the analysis. So last note here, I want to make sure everyone knows after this feature is deployed, which should be any day now, none of your existing data will actually be altered to accommodate this new feature. So don't worry or panic or think that we're going to, change your indices because of this feature. Instead of that, we just went and took all the outages that had been marked as a partial restoration previously, and that was, I don't know if some of you have used it, not everyone has used it, but on the old outage form, there was a button that you could select saying, oh, this is a partial restoration. Well, we took all the outages that were marked as a partial restoration through that button and simply updated them to have a note in the work details field, which is at the bottom of your outage entry form, just saying that they're marked as a part of restoration. So that is here. So yeah, you can see on this screen that they're marked as part of restoration. And and also, I almost forgot to mention, if any of you would like, you just request us and we can give your utility a list of outages where the partial restoration feature was marked on those outages, in case you want to go back and review any of those outages, make changes, and maybe use this new part of restoration feature to actually have it make an effect on your indices. So just let us know. Shoot us an email. So that's kind of that was my example for partial restorations. Does anybody have any questions about this one? I know this one's a little more abstract, so I'll just give it a second here. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions so far, so I'm going to go ahead and just share one more example with you guys in the actual tracker so that you can kind of get a feel for how the buttons and everything actually look, because I guess it might look a little different than what's shown in the presentation. So I'm just going to share my desktop with you guys again. I'm going to that details page. All right, so this is my partial restoration event that I have in my test utility. Here you can see, so up here you'll see the single cause, multi-cause toggle feature. When you scroll down, here is the two boxes that tell you your customer interruptions and customer minutes of interruption. So remember to just keep an eye on that as we keep making changes. So to start off, I'm going to select multi-cause event, and I'm going to update this event. So it says success, event was successfully modified. That means I'm all good to go. When I scroll down, I see the outages listed for this event. You'll notice that this is pretty much the same scenario that we've been talking about for partial restorations, where we have a lightning-related incident. 100 customers are out for 5 minutes. Then after those 5 minutes, let me sort this accordingly. So then after 5 minutes, we restore 50 customers, which means we still have 50 customers out. But while we're restoring, Billy Bob made a mistake, and an additional 50 customers are out. And then after the full 10 minutes, all customers are restored on that front. But then 20 minutes later or so, some other incident occurs, a tree-related incident, and for some reason I decide that I want to group all these into one event, maybe because it's all from the same storm. I'm not really sure. Just I wanted to, and for the sake of this example, that's what we're going to use. So I group these all into one event. This last outage, 100 customers are out, and there are additional customers as well. So currently you can see that, let me go ahead and change this back to yes so you can see the difference, or no, sorry. 1 second. Okay, so yeah, so this is the one we're looking at. Okay, so initially you can see here that we have the 4 outages, and all of them are set to no for as part of restoration. So if you scroll down and you look at the customer interruptions for this event, it says 300 because it's simply summing all of the customers out for every single outage in this event, even though they're grouped together. It's adding them up, and that is the customer interruptions number. So 300 customers out. And it's saying that there are 2,000 customer minutes of interruption. So if we go back and look at the scenario, though, we realize that, oh, well, yeah, there are 100 customers out. These 50 are the same customers out, so they shouldn't count. These 50 are new customers. These 100 are new customers. So if we really add up the total number of customers that were actually interrupted, regardless of the time frame in which they're interrupted, well, there's only 250 customers that were interrupted. So in order to do that, like we did or like you saw in the slides, I can just click, and I can click multiple if I want. I can click this outage because this is the one where the same customers are being repeated, and I can set is part of restoration to yes. And when I do that, if you give it a second, if I do that, now you'll notice that the customer interruptions now turn to 250. which is right. And you'll also notice that the customer minutes of interruption is still 2,000, which is also right, because the customer minutes of interruption will not be affected by the part of restoration changes. And then now, since it's multi-cause, you'll see all the causes are going to be included. If I hit single cause events, then now you'll see there's only a check mark next to lightning. So like I had mentioned before, when you hit single cause, it's going to take the entire event and attribute it to that one cause, the cause that is the first. So this lightning-related outage is the first, judging by start time and start date. So that's why the entire event is now caused by lightning. And in your reports, you'll see that the customer minutes of interruption, this 2,000 minutes of interruption, is also going to be associated with only lightning because single cause is selected. Like I mentioned before, you can feel free to reach out to me or Alex, or email reliability@publicpower.org, and we're happy to talk through some more examples with you all, or even, talk about unique outages or outage events that you've had, and discuss how to enter it into the tracker. And it's also important to note that the way that we had set up these, like the partial restoration feature and everything, we had looked at the way that IEEE 1366 standards deals with steps or partial restorations, and that's kind of how we came up with this. So if you have any feedback on what you think about it, and if you have a different perspective on it, we're really happy to hear that.